Hi, good afternoon. It's Dean from maverickstar Observatory. What we're looking at is the data that was sent to me yesterday by one of our superstars in Canada, Kendall. Big thanks for that. What we're hoping to see, as you know, if you may be following us on this channel, we're looking at the decay over a rapid period of time. 7 years, we've seen a massive reduction of the magnetic intensity over Canada. And recently, Kendall, one of our superstars, has took it upon himself to have one of our magnetometers there record the data and send it back to the UK so that we can analyse what's going on there. You know, what we're hoping to see over the coming months is a decay, or a noticeable decay, in either the amplitude of the signal or the magnetic intensity, or a change in the frequency, or just a decay of the frequency in general, which means it starts to decline on the left hand column that you can see in microteslers. Now we've got a measurement almost close to what the magnetic intensity is. It's actually around 55 microteslers in Canada right now, and that is dropping off, and we've seen it drop off with the video imagery that we've showed over the last couple of months. So at the moment it has increased slightly, as you can see from last month's, but that doesn't mean it's going to continue to increase, because, as you know, if you've been following us, the magnetic intensity of Canada is depleting, and we saw it deplete quite rapid over 7 years. The magnetic pole is migrating. We know it's migrating at around 4 miles per month, and when you consider that the Earth has got a quite large diameter, that's not quite a lot. You'd think, oh, that's pretty slow. But over the last 100 years, it's migrated nearly 1,600 miles over the northern hemisphere and heading towards a direction somewhere just south of the Arctic Circle in Russia. And it has been continuing to migrate in that direction, as you've seen on the previous videos. A couple of days ago I put the latest magnetic North Pole position up, and you would have seen how it's progressed over the last month and the months before that. You also noted something that I really never picked up on before, was that our 40-degree marker through conducting experiments was on the Atlantic Ridge, North Atlantic Ridge, and that could just be coincidence, or it could be, that something will dramatically change at that point, and we'll probably, if you do the math, 2 to 3 years away from that 40 degrees. We could be probably 10 years away if the magnetic pole migrates at the rate it is, and goes past the 40-degree mark and continues in its current speed. We could be 10-15 years away from it entering its epicenter in Russia, where we know it is heading right now. And it's really strange, because the mainstream organisation like NASA and the European Space Agency, that have dedicated space missions to the magnetic intensity and study of the Earth's magnetism on the planet, they have never come out and said that, where it is heading, whereas we have did that and said, look, it's quite obvious why it left Canada and why it's going to Russia, the magnetic North Pole. It's because the intensity is depleting over Canada and increasing over Russia, and quite clearly we see it moving in that direction, because we've got corridor bars now on our monthly update of where the magnetic North Pole is. We've got corridor bars, and the pins are dropping inside the corridor, and we know the corridor leads to that point in Russia where these organisations, when they updated the World Magnetic Model this year, because of the rapid changes in it, they had to update it. We know that the epicenter is increasing in magnetic intensity, and the magnetic North Pole is directly on course for it. So it's just a matter of time. And like I say, what we're looking for is either a change in the amplitude of the sine waves that we get. I know they're very closely packed, and it's difficult for you to see that, but the reason for that is because we're recording on a level of every 15 minutes, and obviously you can see we've got over 2,000 readings at that level. so you're going to have it scrunched up, the sine wave. But nevertheless, we can see in general what is happening with the data that we're collecting. And at the moment in Canada, things are relatively stable, but it doesn't mean that that is going to be the case, and we know that is possible because of what we've seen take place over the last 7 years. Let me just run that video again for some of the people that haven't seen that. So there's quite a lot we can see in this animation of data. First of all, we can see in the center bottom, the disk over Canada is reducing in intensity. You can see that clearly. Over the top left corner, we see the magnetic pole migrating across the northern hemisphere, and this video covers a time period from about 1999 to 2016, I think it is. So around about 17 years, we see quite a large acceleration of the magnetic north pole, and we see a change in the different intensities around our planet. For instance, if we look at the South Atlantic anomaly, which is the darkest blue region on the bottom disk, we can see that extending towards South Africa. And recent NASA have came out and said that it is beginning to split in two. Now that could be, as we have predicted, it could be due to an uptick in the South Atlantic ridge, underground volcanoes erupting, and that could be what is splitting that. That is theory. It needs more work to prove the point, and a lot more time invested in research into this. But we can see the changes that are taking place, and we're very lucky because at the moment we've got magnetometers in Arizona. We've also got one in Canada, so we're detecting that plume shrinking off over Arizona and in turn Canada as well. We've got one in Hong Kong which covers the Russian intensity at its very end. So what we would expect to be seeing in the not too distant future is a reduction in magnetic intensity. But then we've also got that the intensity that is creeping up on the South Peninsula of Australia towards one of our magnetometers in Perth, and on the other coastline in the Gold Coast. So we would expect an increased intensity there, and then when it starts to submerge itself over the continent of Australia, it should be coming towards again our magnetometer in Hong Kong, and we should be getting an increase in the reading there. That is if the magnetic anomaly in the South Atlantic anomaly that we're talking about doesn't increase. Otherwise, we could see a reduction in Perth and the Gold Coast, and also as a result of that in Hong Kong. So we are still trying our best here at the observatory to get magnetometers into places like Brazil and Russia, for the fact that we can follow what's going on with the South Atlantic anomaly, which is the weakest intensity, probably around 22 to 25 microteslas in strength, and we can also concentrate on what's going on with Russia, whilst its intensity right now is increasing, and as a result of that, dragging the magnetic north pole towards it. We know as a byproduct of these magnetic intensities changing, there is an influence as a result of not just the migration of poles, but also the magnetosphere is depleting in strength, probably lost around about 20%, and as a result of that, we are getting more cosmic rays inbound, and that is changing the climate on our planet. And we are seeing, as this happens, world governments now trying to secure stocks of imported crops. We only showed you yesterday about the 178,000 homes that was flooded in Vietnam, and it wasn't just floods that destroyed homes, it was floods that destroyed crops. Now, as you can imagine, if we see more of these, and you can go and do research on floods every day, it seems now there is a new flood causing new devastation, and at the same time destroying the arable land which we grow crops on and export or import around the world. So there is a global food shortage emerging. And I bet this was predicted a long time ago by these governments. They knew what would be the results of added more radiation into the upper atmosphere, creating cloud condensation, and as a result, you get more clouds, you get heavier jet streams. The jet streams yonder from the polar jet streams to the subtropical. When that happens, you have a lot of cold weather in a warm environment, and that causes condensation. When you have cosmic rays mixed into that, you have the perfect seeding platform for condensation to take place. And of course, if you get an abundance of condensation, you are going to get precipitation, and the precipitation leads to floods. It shouldn't be of any surprise that that is the mechanism which is changing our climate right now. It does make me wonder, are we that arrogant to build cities and think that we can keep them supported artificially forever? I think if we look at the ancestors that we've had, like the Incas, the Mayans, the Egyptians, they was all focused on climate in a regard, whereas they knew the cropping seasons, when to put the seeds in the ground and when to get them out, at the harvest points. I wonder if they was fooled by a changing in the climate, and that has led to them no longer being thriving cities as they were. I mean, we do not have cities like from the Mayans that have extended into modern day cities. I mean, if that was the case, we would have things like, just off the top of my head, we would have the Empire State Building and the Twin Towers when they were still standing right next to, an Egyptian pyramid or something like that, or a pyramid of its time, relating to that area. Okay, so if it was the Mayan Empire that succeeded, you could imagine now that it would have skyscrapers all around it, but something led to, the abandonment of that city. And we see this throughout the history of humanity, a mass abandoning of big cities. And we know on some accounts that it was through the reduction of the ability to supply them cities with food. And as food started to dwindle, it became easier for the person to go and hunt and gather for his own family, as opposed to wait and use bartering systems or money systems that would enable him to get the goods. We could easily see today why our cities would fail, because just taking a grid down situation, which wouldn't have affected these ancient cultures, because they had no technology. So a solar flare wouldn't have affected them, so they was probably better off for that reason. But not understanding that the climate was changing probably made them fail to migrate and leave the city and set up a city somewhere else, or at least expand the colony out to a region where they was able to grow and cultivate the crops to bring them back into the city. There was obviously, what I'm saying, a big failure, and that's why the cities are no longer there today with skyscrapers surrounding these ancient monuments, because it was classed at that time an unproductive environment to sustain larger numbers of people. And we could be looking at such things today with a modern collapse. We could even well be seeing that now. I think people would criticise me for saying that we are probably already overpopulated with having 7 billion people on this planet. Well, just look at the food production now, and if we can we continue to lose the sustainable yields of crops, then we will inevitably lose numbers of population. So it's it's a bit of a shock, guys. This is where we are, and this is why this observatory is observing this and recording the information as we do. Some people would criticise us for the level of resolution that we record at. I mean, like the Trimag is recording every 3 seconds a reading of where the heading and the position of the magnetic North Pole is, and every 15 minutes here at this observatory we also record the magnetosphere strength, as we do all the other magnetic intensities around the world from the locations that we've got. And it is probably one of the biggest shames, I've got to say this, that it's so unsupported. You know, that we see the money that gets wasted on lesser value projects than what we've undertook here at this observatory, and yet, you know, one of the biggest anomalies that's taking place, we face probably the biggest threats, you know, when we compare what's taking place, what has, you know, failed to happen in times of time scales where we're overdue a pole shift 500,000 years. We see over the last, you know, few years that there have been dwindling amounts of erupting volcanoes, which leads us to believe that there could be a solidification in the core. If that's the case, we could be looking to end up like our neighbouring planet did. You know, because first of all, Mars had active volcanoes which stopped around, I think, 500,000 years ago, and then in turn lost the magnetosphere. And we know that from recent impact craters on Mars. When we flew over satellites, they have detected magnetic anomalies different to what that is on the surface in other areas. So we know that it had a magnetosphere. So, you know, that is our fate. You know, it's not good either way, and we haven't reached equilibrium at this point. So things will continue to, you know, unfortunately get worse for us all, guys. But as a result, we will continue to do our best to, you know, collect all the information on this anomaly that's taking place and relay it back to you guys. But, you know, we really need support in doing that. You know, I've mentioned it a few times now. Already this month, we have lost substantial amounts of funding from just a couple of people who can't help us anymore. And, you know, I can't be any more grateful to those people that helped us to this point, but it is a little bit disheartening to see that we are losing funding, yet we are closer to the anomaly taking place more than we ever have been. And we're also approaching anyhow one of the worst points in time for this observatory, which is the Christmas period, and we couldn't have hit an even worse period of time because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're facing, you know, critical times right here at the observatory, and it's a struggle to keep our heads above water, which is why, you know, we appeal to people to help us out and continue to keep people informed, and yourselves, of this rare anomaly that's taking place in our life, and equally life affecting and changing anomalies as they occur. So, you know, I will say no more, guys. You know, you look after your loved ones, and, you know, if you want to help support what we do here, the link is down there in the description, and I'll say what I usually do. Take care, as always. Bye for now.